The desert wind howled across the red plains of Cygnus 7, carrying dust that stung like tiny needles. Dr. Anna Reeves wiped sweat from her forehead and stared at the massive hole her team had been digging for 3 months. Most people thought she was crazy for coming to this dead world at the edge of known space. Even her own university had questioned the funding for this expedition. But Anna knew something was buried here. The orbital scans had shown it clearly. A structure, too, perfect to be natural, too old to belong to any known civilization. Tom Blake climbed out of the excavation pit, his work clothes covered in red dirt. The former military engineer had joined her team after retiring from the Colonial Defense Force. He was the only one who could operate the heavy digging equipment they needed for this job. "We hit something solid about 20 meters down," he said, pulling off his work gloves. "It's not rock or metal, something I've never seen before." Anna felt her heart race. After years of searching dead worlds and finding nothing but ruins of ordinary civilizations, this might finally be different. She had spent her entire career looking for proof that the first ones were real. Every species in the galaxy had stories about them. The ancient teachers who had given fire to primitive worlds and then vanished without a trace. Most scientists believed they were just myths, stories that civilizations told themselves to explain how they had developed technology. "Show me," Anna said, grabbing her equipment bag. The excavation site buzzed with activity. Her small team of 12 researchers worked carefully around the edges of what they had uncovered. Dr. Kevin Mills, the team's linguist, was already taking photographs of strange symbols carved into what looked like crystal. The surface was smooth and dark, but it seemed to glow with its own inner light. "Anna, you need to see this," called Rebecca Cross from the far side of the dig. The young geologist was kneeling next to an exposed section of the structure, running her scanner over the surface. "The dating is impossible. This thing is over 4 million years old." Anna knelt beside her and looked at the scanner readings. Rebecca was right. The age estimates were staggering. But what caught her attention were the symbols carved into the crystal surface. They were arranged in neat rows, almost like writing. She had seen similar markings in ancient texts from dozens of different worlds, always described as the sacred language of the first ones. "Kevin, can you make sense of these symbols?" she called to the linguist. Kevin joined them, his tablet already loaded with translation programs and databases of known languages. He studied the carvings for several minutes, occasionally taking close-up photographs. "It's definitely a writing system," he said finally, "but it doesn't match any known galactic language. The structure is too simple, too basic. It's almost like—" He stopped talking and stared at the symbols with a strange expression on his face. "Like what?" Anna asked. "Like early human pictographs," Kevin said quietly. "But that's impossible. Humans didn't have space travel 4 million years ago." Tom was setting up floodlights around the excavation when his equipment scanner started beeping rapidly. "We've got power readings," he announced. "Whatever this thing is, it's not completely dead." Anna felt a chill run down her spine. In all her years of archaeological work, she had never found an active First One site. Every previous discovery had been cold ruins, empty shells that had been abandoned for millions of years. But this structure was different. It was waiting. As they worked to expose more of the crystal structure, its true size became apparent. It was enormous, at least 50 meters across, and who knew how deep. The surface was covered with the strange symbols, thousands of them arranged in complex patterns. Some sections seemed to be technical diagrams, others looked like star charts or mathematical formulas. "Anna, look at this section," Rebecca called out. She was pointing to an area where the symbols seemed to form a map. "These look like stellar coordinates. And this constellation pattern, I think it's the Orion arm." Anna studied the star map carefully. Rebecca was right. It showed their local region of the galaxy with remarkable accuracy. But what was most interesting were the markers scattered across dozens of star systems. Each marker was accompanied by symbols that might be coordinates or identification codes. It's a network, Anna realized. This isn't just one site. There are markers for locations across the entire galaxy. Kevin had been working on translating more of the symbols when he suddenly went very quiet. Anna looked over and saw him staring at his tablet with an expression of complete shock. "What is it?" she asked. "I figured out part of the language structure," Kevin said in a voice barely above a whisper. "Anna, this isn't alien writing at all. It's human. Very, very old human writing, but definitely human in origin." Before Anna could respond, Tom's voice echoed from inside the structure. "You all need to get down here right now. I found some kind of control room." They climbed down into the excavation and followed Tom through an opening that led into the crystal structure. Inside, the walls glowed with soft blue light, revealing a chamber filled with what could only be described as control panels. The technology was unlike anything Anna had ever seen. Smooth crystal surfaces covered with symbols that pulsed with gentle light. Tom was standing in front of the largest panel, his scanner detecting massive energy readings. "The whole system is coming online," he said. "It's like our presence activated some kind of automatic sequence." The chamber filled with a low humming sound, and suddenly holographic displays appeared above the control panels. Star charts, technical diagrams, and streams of data in the strange symbol language. Anna watched in amazement as the ancient systems awakened after millions of years of sleep. Then, without warning, one of the panels flashed brightly and sent a powerful signal racing into space. The transmission was so strong that it shook the entire structure and sent shockwaves through the ground above. "What did it just do?" Rebecca asked, steadying herself against the wall. Tom checked his long-range sensors and felt his blood run, cold. "It sent a signal, a really big signal, broadcast across the entire galaxy." Anna stared at the still active control panels and realized what they had just done. They hadn't just discovered a first one site. They had announced its discovery to every advanced civilization in the galaxy. And if Kevin was right about the language being human in origin, they had just revealed something that would change everything anyone thought they knew about human history. The ancient chamber continued to hum with power, its systems fully active for the first time in millions of years. Somewhere in the depths of the structure, other systems were awakening, preparing to reveal secrets that had been hidden since before recorded history began. Anna looked at her team and knew their quiet archaeological expedition had just become something much more dangerous. They had opened a door that had been closed for millions of years, and there was no way to close it again. The massive ships appeared in Cygnus 7's orbit 3 days after the signal was sent. Anna watched through her telescope as 12 different vessel designs took positions around the planet. She recognized some of them from history books: the elegant, spiral ships of the Ashanti, the geometric crystal vessels of the Vorthok, and the flowing energy forms of the Lumina. The entire Galactic Council had come to this remote world. Rebecca ran into the excavation camp, her portable scanner beeping frantically. "Anna, we've got incoming shuttles, at least 20 of them, all different designs. They'll be here within the hour." Anna looked at the crystal structure they had uncovered. In the 3 days since they had activated it, more sections had revealed themselves. The entire site was now glowing with soft blue light, and holographic displays showed continuously, updating information in the ancient symbol language. Kevin had made progress translating some sections, but what he had learned was troubling. "Are we sure about the language translation?" Anna asked Kevin as they watched the alien shuttles descend toward their camp. Kevin nodded grimly. "I've run every test I can think of. The base structure is definitely early human writing. Primitive, but unmistakably human in origin. The mathematical concepts, the way they describe spatial relationships, even the cultural references in some sections. It's all human. Tom finished setting up a defensive perimeter around the camp, though they all knew it would be useless against an entire Galactic Council fleet. "So what's the plan when they get here? Do we tell them what we found?" "We tell them the truth," Anna said, "even if they don't believe it." The first shuttle to land belonged to the Ashanti. High Arbiter Zelan emerged, followed by her telepathic honor guard. The Ashanti were tall, graceful beings with pale blue skin and large, dark eyes. They had been the first species to achieve faster-than-light travel after humans, and they were considered the most spiritually advanced members of the Council. More shuttles landed in quick succession. The crystalline Vorthak arrived in vessels that looked like floating gems. The Lumina came as beings of pure energy contained within mechanical forms. Representatives from all 12 council species gathered around Anna's small camp, their advanced technology making the human archaeological equipment look primitive. High Arbiter Zelan approached Anna with slow, respectful steps. When she spoke, her voice carried the musical quality that made Ashanti so renowned as diplomats. "Dr. Reeves, we received the signal from this world. We know you have found a First One site." Anna nodded carefully. "We have. But what we found is not what anyone expected." "Show us," said Commander Thex of the Vorthak. The crystalline being's voice came from speakers built into his geometric form. "We have waited millennia for an active First One site to be discovered." Anna led the alien delegation to the excavation site. As they approached the glowing crystal structure, many of the aliens stopped and fell to their knees. The Ashanti began chanting in their musical language. The Vorthak's crystals changed color to deep purple, a sign of religious awe. Even the normally emotionless Lumina seemed affected by what they were seeing. "It is truly a First One sanctuary," whispered Elder Crane of the Mordani. The ancient reptilian being was over 300 years old and claimed to remember stories passed down from his species' earliest days. The holy light, the sacred symbols, the divine architecture, just as the prophecies described. Anna exchanged glances with Kevin. The aliens were seeing exactly what they expected to see, a site built by their legendary gods. They had no idea they were looking at ancient human technology. "High Arbiter," Anna said carefully. "We've made some progress translating the symbols. Would you like to see what we've learned?" Zelan's large eyes widened with excitement. "You can read the sacred language? This is beyond our greatest hopes." Kevin stepped forward with his tablet, displaying his translation work. The language is actually less complex than we initially thought. The basic structure is quite simple, built around core concepts that should be familiar to any spacefaring species. As Kevin explained his translation methods, Anna watched the aliens' reactions carefully. They were fascinated by every detail, treating Kevin's work as if he was revealing Holy Scripture, but Anna could see the moment when Kevin's explanation would lead to the inevitable conclusion. "The linguistic patterns suggest that whoever wrote these symbols thought in very specific ways," Kevin continued. "Their mathematical concepts are based on base 10 counting, which indicates they had 10 digits for counting. Their spatial references assume a world with specific gravity and atmospheric conditions, and their cultural references suggest a species that evolved from hunter-gatherers who lived in social groups." Commander Thex's crystal form flickered with interest. "These details match the sacred texts perfectly. The first ones were described as having these exact characteristics." Kevin took a deep breath. "That's the problem. These aren't just similar to one species we know. They're identical to human linguistic and cultural patterns. The symbols, the language structure, the mathematical concepts, they're all human in origin." The silence that followed was complete. Anna could hear the wind blowing across the desert and the hum of the alien shuttles in the distance. The council representatives stood frozen, processing what they had just heard. High Arbiter Zelan was the first to speak. You are suggesting that humans wrote these symbols? Not suggesting, Anna said quietly. We're certain. This site was built by early humans over 4 million years ago. Elder Crane's reptilian features contorted with confusion. Impossible. Humans are a young species. You have barely achieved space travel in the last few centuries. Anna gestured toward the active crystal structure. The evidence is right here. Kevin, show them the cultural references you found. Kevin displayed a section of symbols on his tablet. This passage describes a species that originally lived on a world with a 24-hour day cycle and a single moon. A world with specific ocean and landmass ratios. The description matches Earth perfectly. The alien representatives began talking among themselves in their various languages. Anna could sense their growing agitation. Everything they believed. About their history, their religion, their place in the universe was being challenged by what they were seeing. Commander Voss of the Corvan Empire, a militaristic species that had recently joined the Council, stepped forward aggressively. This is blasphemy, he declared. The savage humans cannot be the first ones. They are barely capable of building functional starships. The evidence doesn't care what we want to believe, Anna replied. The site is here, the language is human, and the age dating is accurate. 4 million years ago, humans were already traveling between stars. High Arbiter Zelen closed her large eyes and seemed to be meditating. When she opened them again, her expression was troubled. If this is true, then everything we know about our own history is wrong. The first ones gave us fire, medicine, mathematics, space travel itself. If they were humans, then humans are our teachers, Anna finished quietly. Yes. According to what we've found here, early humans traveled the galaxy millions of years ago, sharing knowledge with primitive species and helping them develop technology. The crystal structure pulsed brighter, as if responding to their conversation. New holographic displays appeared, showing star maps with markers indicating hundreds of other sites across the galaxy. Each marker was accompanied by symbols that Kevin was beginning to recognize as location coordinates. There are more sites, Rebecca said, pointing at the display. Hundreds of them, all across the galaxy. Anna watched the alien representatives stare at the holographic map and saw the exact moment when the full implications hit them. They weren't just looking at one archaeological site. They were looking at evidence of an ancient human civilization that had spanned the entire galaxy. A civilization that had uplifted their species and then mysteriously vanished. The question that hung in the air, unspoken but obvious to everyone present, was simple and terrifying. If humans had once been the galaxy's teachers and protectors, what had happened to make them forget their own history? And what did it mean that they were now beginning to remember? The holographic chamber deep within the crystal structure came to life when Anna placed her hand on the central control panel. The ancient system had been waiting for a genetic signature it recognized, and after 4 million years, it finally had one. The walls around them dissolved into swirling images of stars and worlds, showing the galaxy as it had existed in humanity's forgotten past. Kevin stood transfixed as streams of data flowed across the holographic displays in the ancient human language he was learning to read. It's a historical record, he said, his voice filled with wonder. A complete archive of what happened. The alien council representatives watched in stunned silence as the story of their galaxy's true history began to unfold before them. High Arbiter Zelan's telepathic abilities allowed her to sense the emotional weight of what they were witnessing, and tears began flowing down her pale blue cheeks. The first images showed Earth as it had been millions of years ago, but not the primitive world the aliens expected. Instead, they saw great cities that reached into the sky, massive space stations orbiting the planet, and fleets of ships unlike anything in the modern galaxy. Early humanity had achieved technological advancement that surpassed even current Galactic Council capabilities. "Look at their ships," whispered Commander Thex, his crystalline form flickering with amazement. "They're using space-time manipulation technology. We still haven't figured out how to do that." Anna watched her own species' forgotten history with growing awe and sadness. The holographic records showed humans spreading across the galaxy not as conquerors, but as explorers and teachers. They had found dozens of primitive species struggling to develop basic technology and had chosen to help them advance. The images shifted to show human teachers working with early Ashanti, sharing knowledge of mathematics and astronomy. Other scenes depicted humans helping the crystalline ancestors of the Vorthak learn to harness their natural energy abilities. Every species represented in the Galactic Council appeared in the ancient records, shown as primitive beings receiving guidance from patient human mentors. "We were children," Elder Crane said quietly, his reptilian voice thick with emotion. "All of us were children, and you were our teachers." But the records also showed something else. As the millennia passed, human civilization began to face internal struggles. The holographic displays revealed growing disagreements among human colonies about their role in the galaxy. Some wanted to continue guiding younger species gradually, while others believed they should share all their knowledge immediately. Still others argued that advanced species should develop naturally without interference. Rebecca pointed to a section of the display showing detailed star charts. "Look at this. They weren't just teachers. They were monitoring threats to the galaxy. These charts show massive anomalies at the galaxy's edge." The images became darker as they revealed what the ancient humans had been watching for. From beyond the galaxy's rim, something vast and hostile was approaching. The holographic records showed human scientists detecting gravitational anomalies and energy signatures that indicated an invasion force of unimaginable size. Tom studied the tactical displays with his military background. They knew something was coming, something big enough to threaten the entire galaxy. The record showed humanity's response to the approaching threat. Rather than warning the younger species and causing galaxy-wide panic, they had made a different choice. Human fleets gathered at the galaxy's edge for a massive defensive battle, while other humans began preparing for the worst-case scenario. Anna felt her heart breaking as she watched what came next. The human government had activated something, called the Restoration Protocol. Advanced technology was hidden in secret caches across the galaxy. Critical knowledge was encrypted and stored in the very sites where they had first taught each species. Most painfully, human colonies were abandoned, as the entire species retreated to Earth to make their final stand. "They gave up everything," High Arbiter Zelen said, her telepathic senses overwhelmed by the emotional resonance of the ancient records. "They gave up their entire galactic civilization to protect us." The final battle was shown in terrible detail. Humanity's advanced fleets fought against an enemy that seemed to be made of living darkness. The invaders were unlike anything the modern galaxy had ever encountered, beings that consumed energy itself and turned entire star systems into feeding grounds. For decades, the battle raged at the galaxy's edge, while the younger species remained unaware of the war being fought for their survival. Kevin found himself translating tactical reports that described humanity's desperate strategy. They weren't trying to win, he realized. They were trying to delay the invasion long enough for something else. The answer came in the final set of records. Humanity had discovered that the Dark Invaders were vulnerable to a specific type of energy field that could only be generated by sacrificing all advanced technology in the galaxy. Every human ship, every space station, every piece of advanced equipment had to be destroyed simultaneously to create a barrier that would force the invaders back beyond the galactic rim. "The Great Reset," Anna read from the translated text. They called it the Great Reset. The holographic display showed the moment when humanity activated their final weapon. Every piece of advanced technology in the galaxy simply stopped working. Human ships went dark, space stations shut down, and even the monitoring stations on primitive worlds went silent. The energy released by the simultaneous destruction created a barrier that pushed the dark invaders back into the void between galaxies. But the cost was everything. Humanity was forced to return to Earth with no advanced technology, no way to contact their former students, and no way to maintain their galactic civilization. The younger species they had taught were left to develop on their own, unaware that their teachers had sacrificed everything to save them. Commander Voss of the Corvan Empire, who had been silent throughout the revelation, finally spoke. So when we encountered humans centuries ago, we were meeting the survivors of our own saviors. Anna nodded sadly. Humans forgot their own history. The knowledge was lost during the technological collapse. We had to start over from the beginning. While you continued to develop using what we had taught you. Elder Crane stepped closer to the holographic displays, studying the technical specifications of the energy barrier. The barrier is still active, he said with growing excitement. According to these readings, it's still protecting the galaxy, but it's weakening. Tom immediately understood the implications. How long do we have? Kevin frantically translated. More of the technical data. The barrier was designed to last approximately 4 million years. It's been exactly that long since it was activated. The chamber fell silent as everyone processed what that meant. The ancient enemy was still out, there in the void, waiting for the barrier to fail. And when it did, they would return to finish what they had started millions of years ago. But the records held one final revelation. The ancient humans had not just hidden technology in secret caches across the galaxy. They had also left detailed instructions for their descendants, assuming that someday humanity would rediscover their true history and need to prepare for the invaders' return. High Arbiter Zelen turned to Anna with an expression of desperate hope. The activation of this site, the signal that brought us here, it was not just revealing the past, it was activating the preparation protocols your ancestors left behind. Anna looked at the swirling holographic displays and realized that their archaeological expedition had become something much more significant. They had not just discovered ancient history. They had triggered humanity's ancient emergency plan, designed to prepare the galaxy for a war that was still coming. The forgotten ancients had returned to memory just in time to face the darkness they had once defeated. But this time, they would not face it alone. This time, they would fight alongside the civilizations they had once taught, as equals rather than protectors. The galaxy was about to remember that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from forgetting the past, but from finally understanding it. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire, carried by quantum communicators and hyperspace transmissions that reached every inhabited world within hours. Humanity, the species most civilizations barely knew existed, were revealed to be the legendary First Ones. The reaction was immediate, chaotic, and completely unpredictable. On the Ashanti homeworld, millions of blue-skinned beings gathered in the sacred temples to hear their spiritual leaders explain how their creation myths had suddenly become historical fact. High Priestess Miran stood before the largest temple congregation in centuries, her musical voice carrying both wonder and confusion. For 40,000 years we have prayed to the First Ones for guidance, she told the assembled crowd. Now we learn they have been among us all along, struggling with the same questions we face every day. The Ashanti response was one of overwhelming joy and pilgrimage. Within days, Ashanti ships began traveling to human colonies throughout the Pulp galaxy. But they did not come as superior beings visiting primitives. They came as children seeking to reconnect with parents they had never known they had. Human colonists found themselves approached by Ashanti, who knelt in reverence, offering gifts and seeking wisdom from people who were just trying to grow crops or run mining operations. The crystalline Vorthak had a completely different reaction. Their society was built around precise logic and mathematical harmony, and the revelation that their entire understanding of galactic history was wrong sent shockwaves through their collective consciousness. Elder Crystal Nexus, the supreme computational mind of their species, spent 3 full days processing the implications before issuing an official statement. "The data requires complete restructuring of our historical databases," the Nexus announced, "to all Vorthak through their shared crystal network." However, this explains numerous anomalies in our early development records that could never be properly accounted for. The human influence clarifies why our technological advancement followed patterns that seemed too organized to be natural. Evolution. But not every species reacted with acceptance or wonder. The militant Corvan Empire, led by Supreme Commander Voss, saw the revelation as a direct threat to their entire worldview. The Corvan had built their civilization around the concept of strength through conquest, believing that the strongest species naturally dominated the weak. Learning that they owed their technology and advancement to the guidance of the weak humans was unacceptable. "This is propaganda," Commander Voss declared to his war council. "The humans are trying to claim superiority over species that have surpassed them in every way. They want us to bow down to them based on ancient lies." The Corvan response was swift and brutal. They launched attacks on human colonies in 3 different star systems, claiming they were conducting scientific verification of human capabilities. The attacks were designed to prove that modern humans were weak and primitive compared to the species they supposedly once taught. But the Corvan made a critical error. They attacked the human colony on Centauri 3, where Dr. Michael Ross had been, working on historical research since the Cygnus 7 revelations. Ross had been analyzing the coordinate data from the ancient archives and had located one of the hidden technology caches that the ancient humans had left behind. The cache was buried deep beneath Centauri 3's largest mountain, sealed with genetic locks that only activated when approached by human DNA. When the Corvan ships began their attack, Ross was in the middle of documenting what appeared to be an ancient human weapons facility. Tom Blake had arrived on Centauri 3 just hours before the attack, leading a team of engineers and archaeologists to investigate the cache site. When the Corvan orbital bombardment began, he found himself in the middle of humanity's first real test since the revelations. "The cache is responding to the attack," Ross reported as explosions shook the mountain around them. "The defense systems are activating automatically." Tom watched in amazement as ancient human technology came to life after millions of years of dormancy. Energy shields materialized around the colony settlements, deflecting Corvan plasma weapons with ease. But more impressive were the weapons that emerged from hidden installations throughout the system. The ancient humans had not just hidden defensive technology. They had left behind weapons that made current galactic military hardware look primitive. Beam weapons that could disable ships without destroying them, force fields that could redirect incoming attacks, and most remarkably, communication jammers that could shut down enemy fleet coordination across an entire star system. "The Corvan fleet is dead in space," reported the colony's communication officer. "Their ships are intact, but every system is offline." The Corvan attack on Centauri 3 became a demonstration that shocked the entire galaxy. The primitive humans had defeated a modern military fleet using technology that no current civilization could understand or duplicate. But what impressed other species even more was what humanity did next. Instead of destroying the disabled Corvan ships, the humans used their ancient technology to safely transport the entire enemy fleet to a neutral system. The Corvan crews were released unharmed. Their ships returned without any weapons or military data, but with a clear message from the human colonial government. "We do not wish to fight," the message stated simply, "but we will defend ourselves if necessary. We hope you will choose to learn rather than conquer." The reaction across the galaxy was immediate. Species that had been considering hostile actions against human colonies suddenly reconsidered their positions. The Lumina, beings of pure energy who rarely showed strong emotions, declared the human response to be perfectly balanced between strength, and wisdom. But the revelations continued to spread chaos throughout galactic society. On dozens of worlds, religious movements sprang up around the worship of living humans. The Zephyri, a species known for their elaborate spiritual ceremonies, began constructing temples dedicated to human colonists who wanted nothing more than to be left alone to live their lives. Emma Martinez, a simple teacher on the human colony of New Terra, found herself surrounded by thousands of Zephyri pilgrims who believed she possessed divine wisdom. "I just teach mathematics to children," she tried to explain to the alien worshippers. "I'm not a goddess or a prophet. I'm just a regular person." But her protests only convinced the Zephyri that she was demonstrating the humility that marked true divinity. They began recording her every word as sacred scripture, turning her lessons about basic arithmetic into complex theological discussions about the nature of universal harmony. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council was struggling to maintain order as member species demanded answers about their own histories. Archaeological teams were dispatched to dozens of worlds, searching for evidence of ancient human contact. What they found confirmed the worst fears of Council leadership. Every major technological advancement in galactic history could be traced back to periods when unknown benefactors had provided crucial knowledge to developing civilizations. The timing of these advancements matched perfectly with the ancient human records found on Cygnus 7. The galaxy's entire technological foundation had been built on lessons taught by humans millions of years ago. High Arbiter Zelan called an emergency session of the Galactic Council to address the crisis. Representatives from all 12 member species gathered on the neutral world of Harmony Station, but the unity that had once defined the Council was cracking under the weight of revelation. "Some of our member species are treating humans as gods," Zelan reported to the Assembly. "Others are attacking them as threats. Neither response serves the interests of galactic stability." Elder Crane of the Mordani stood slowly, his ancient reptilian form showing the weight of his years. "We face a choice," he said in his gravelly voice. "We can try to suppress this knowledge and maintain the comfortable lies we have built our civilizations upon, or we can accept the truth and learn to live with it." The debate that followed would determine the future of galactic civilization. But even as the Council argued, more ancient human caches were being discovered across the galaxy. Each new site revealed technology and knowledge that pushed the boundaries of what current science thought possible. Humanity was waking up to its true heritage, and the galaxy was about to learn that the greatest teachers were those who had never stopped learning themselves. The question was whether the galaxy would accept humanity as partners in facing the ancient threat that was still approaching, or whether fear and pride would tear apart the unity that would be needed for survival. The ancient barrier was weakening, and somewhere in the dark between galaxies, patient predators were beginning to stir. Anna stood in the main archive chamber of the 7th cache site her team had uncovered, watching as ancient holographic displays revealed the scope of humanity's forgotten legacy. Each new discovery had brought more questions and more responsibilities. The cache on Rigel 9 contained medical technology that could cure diseases plaguing dozens of species. The facility on Kepler 438b held energy generation systems that could power entire civilizations without depleting natural resources. But this cache, buried deep beneath the ice of Europa 7, held something more important than technology. It held humanity's final message to itself. Tom Blake worked carefully with the alien specialists who had joined their archaeological team. High Arbiter Zelan had assigned her best telepathic technicians to help interface with the ancient systems, while the Vorthak had contributed their most advanced crystalline computers to help process the vast amounts of data they were uncovering. "Anna, you need to see this," called Dr. Patel, the xenolinguist who had replaced Kevin when he was promoted to head the new Galactic Translation Institute. "The final archive isn't just a historical record, it's an instruction manual. The central chamber activated as Anna approached, responding to her genetic signature just as all the other sites had done. But this time, the holographic display that appeared was different. Instead of showing historical events, it displayed a figure that looked remarkably like a human wearing ancient robes. "Greetings, children of humanity," the holographic figure said in perfect modern English. "If you are seeing this message, then our plan has succeeded. You have rediscovered your heritage and activated the preparation protocols we left for this moment." Anna felt chills run down her spine as she realized she was watching a message recorded millions of years ago by her own ancestors, specifically designed to be found at this exact point in history. "My name is Dr. Elena Santos, and I served as the final director of the Galactic Heritage Project. We knew that the Great Reset would erase our civilization from memory, but we also knew that our descendants would eventually rediscover their true nature. This message activates when specific conditions are met, when humanity has advanced enough to understand their past, and when the ancient barrier begins to weaken." The holographic Dr. Santos gestured, and new displays appeared showing real-time readings of the galactic barrier. Anna could see the energy patterns fluctuating in ways that indicated systematic failure. "The barrier that protects our galaxy from the devourer entities will fail within 18 months, Santos continued. "But you are not defenseless. Every cache you have discovered contains not just technology, but pieces of a greater weapon. The same weapon we used to create the barrier can be rebuilt and improved." Tom studied the technical specifications that appeared on the displays. "It's a network," he realized. "Each cache contains components that work together. We haven't just been finding individual sites. We've been assembling a galaxy-wide defensive system." The message continued with detailed instructions for activating what the ancient humans had called the Unity Protocol. Unlike the Great Reset, which had required the destruction of all advanced technology, the Unity Protocol was designed to combine the knowledge and capabilities of all galactic civilizations into a single defensive network. "You will not face this threat alone," Dr. Santos explained. "The species you once taught have grown beyond what we ever imagined possible. Their unique developments, combined with the knowledge we preserved, will create a defense stronger than anything we could have built alone." Anna watched as the holographic display showed how each species in the current Galactic Council had developed technologies that perfectly complemented the ancient human systems. The Ashanti's telepathic abilities could coordinate the network across vast distances. The Vorthak's crystalline technology could store and process the massive amounts of data required. The Lumina's energy manipulation could power systems that would drain entire star systems. "We planned for this," Santos continued. "Every species we guided was encouraged to develop along paths that would eventually contribute to galactic defense. What appeared to be random technological evolution was actually careful preparation for this moment." High Arbiter Zelen, who had been monitoring the message through her telepathic link with the human team, spoke through the communication system. "Anna, the Council has been receiving similar messages from cache sites across the galaxy. Every species is learning that their technological development was guided toward this purpose." The implications were staggering. Humanity's ancient civilization had not just taught random knowledge to primitive species. They had carefully orchestrated the development of an entire galaxy to create the diverse capabilities needed to defend against an enemy that wouldn't return for millions of years. "Doctor." Patel was frantically translating additional data streams that were now flowing from the archive. "There's more. The devourer entities aren't just invaders from outside our galaxy. They're survivors from the previous galactic cycle. They consume advanced civilizations and use the energy to travel to the next galaxy, repeating the process endlessly." Tom studied the tactical data with growing understanding. "They're not just predators, they're farmers. They wait for galaxies to develop advanced life, then harvest the energy and move on. Our galaxy is just their next crop." But the ancient message had one final revelation. The devourer entities had a weakness that humanity's ancestors had discovered during their first encounter. They were vulnerable to a specific type of coordinated energy field that could only be generated by multiple species working in perfect harmony. No single civilization could produce the effect, no matter how advanced. This is why the galaxy needed to develop as it did, Anna realized. Humanity couldn't fight them alone. No one species could. It requires the combined efforts of civilizations that think and operate in completely different ways. The holographic Dr. Santos smiled as if she could hear Anna's realization. Now you understand. The Unity Protocol doesn't just combine our technologies. It combines our ways of thinking, our different approaches to problems, our unique perspectives on reality itself. The Devourers can consume any individual civilization, but they cannot consume the collective consciousness of an entire galaxy, working as one. Over the following months, the cache discoveries accelerated as more species joined the archaeological efforts. The warlike Corvin, humbled by their defeat at Centauri 3, contributed their military expertise to defensive planning. The artistic Melodii provided insights into harmonic frequencies that could disrupt Devourer energy patterns. Even the reclusive void swimmers, who lived in the empty spaces between stars, emerged to share their knowledge of interdimensional physics. Emma Martinez, the teacher who had become an unwilling prophet to the Zephyri, found herself appointed as humanity's representative to the Unity Protocol Coordination Council. Her classroom experience in managing diverse groups of students proved surprisingly relevant to coordinating 12 different alien species with completely different thought processes. The key is understanding that everyone contributes something unique, she explained to the mixed species teams working on the defensive network. The Ashanti don't think like humans, and humans don't think like Vorthak. That's not a problem to solve. It's our greatest strength. As the ancient barrier continued to weaken, energy readings from beyond the galactic rim began detecting movement. The Devourer entities were awakening from their long dormancy, drawn by the failing barrier that had protected the galaxy for millions of years. But this time, they would not find a galaxy of primitive species guided by a single advanced civilization. They would face something unprecedented in their endless cycle of consumption, an entire galaxy that had grown up specifically to resist them. The first Devourer scouts appeared at the galaxy's edge 18 months after the cache discoveries began, just as the ancient predictions had foretold. They were beings of living darkness that consumed light itself, turning entire star systems into feeding grounds as they prepared for the main invasion. But as they crossed the galactic boundary, they encountered something that had never existed in their previous conquests. A unified defensive network powered by 12 different species, each contributing their unique capabilities to a whole that was greater than the sum of its parts. The Unity Protocol activated for the first time as Tom Blake, now serving as the network's military coordinator, gave the command from the control center on Cygnus 7. Across the galaxy, ancient human technology merged with modern alien innovations to create something entirely new. Ashanti telepaths coordinated fleet movements across thousands of light years. Vorthak crystals processed targeting data for weapons that existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions the Devourers couldn't access. Lumina energy. Beings powered defensive shields that surrounded entire solar systems. And at the center of it all, humans served not as the leaders or the followers, but as the coordinators who helped each species contribute their strengths while covering for each other's weaknesses. Anna watched from the bridge of the research vessel that had become the mobile command center for the Unity Protocol. Around her, representatives from every galactic species worked together with a harmony that would have been impossible before they learned their true shared history. "The ancient barrier is completely down," reported the Void Swimmer navigator, its translation device converting its ethereal thoughts into words the others could understand. "But the new network is holding. The Devourers cannot penetrate our combined defenses." For the first time in millions of years, the galaxy had found a way to not just survive the Devourer cycle, but to break it entirely. The entities that had consumed countless galaxies found themselves facing prey that had become predators, civilizations that had learned to work together in ways that transcended individual species' limitations. The forgotten ancients had returned, not as gods or teachers, but as partners in the greatest collaboration the universe had ever seen. And the galaxy, united by the truth of its shared history, stood ready to face whatever challenges the cosmos might bring. In the end, humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy was not technology or knowledge, but the understanding that strength comes not from dominance, but from cooperation. The species that had once taught others to reach for the stars had learned, the most important lesson of all, that the greatest achievements come when everyone reaches together.